Have you ever been told that you have adrenal fatigue, or have you researched your symptoms of tired and wired or tired and depleted, and you can't get going in the morning and you're stressed out and you hit a wall by 2 p.m. and then you can't sleep at night, or maybe you get a second wind at 11 o'clock at night, you're exhausted from 2 o'clock to 10 p.m. And then all of a sudden, bing, 10 p.m. the light goes on and you're like, oh, I finally have energy. I can get stuff done. So if you have any of those symptoms, you may have been told, or you may have researched on your own and been told you have adrenal fatigue. I'm a little bit of a purist, and I don't believe in adrenal fatigue. 99% of the time, your adrenals are not tired. The control of your adrenals have been hijacked. I use the term adrenal dysfunction. Now, first of all, your adrenal glands are your stress glands. They're little tiny glands that sit on top of your kidneys, and they're responsible for making adrenaline and cortisol and DHEA, and these are all very important hormones, and most of them are related to stress. If you're in a stressful situation, your body pumps out adrenaline. Your body starts pumping out cortisol. You get through the stressful situation, and then they're supposed to calm down and go back to normal. In our society, we stay stressed out 24/7 because we always have something to do. We have 20 screens open on our computer. We have a to-do list that is too long. We're stressed because of environmental toxins. We're stressed because of continuous Wi-Fi. We're stressed because we're not nourishing our bodies right. You name it, we're stressed. It is a strain on the adrenals to constantly be pumping out cortisol, but you would die without cortisol. And so at some point, your adrenals have a certain amount of capacity. If they can't keep up with everything, they concentrate on cortisol at the expense of DHEA. Now, DHEA is a very important hormone. It's a repair hormone. Stress is wear and tear. DHEA is rest and repair. Stage 1 adrenal dysfunction is when you have high cortisol and high DHEA. Why does that happen? Well, the high cortisol is a no-brainer. It's because you're under stress. DHEA rises to protect your brain because prolonged high cortisol irritates the brain. And if you picture a turtle retracting into its shell, that's what happens to the little neurons and dendrites in the brain, especially the hippocampus region, which is your memory region of your brain. They start to retract, and that's not good for your memory. So if you're stressed out a lot, you may notice that your memory isn't as good, and that could be because your brain is actually shrinking in response to the high cortisol. You can recover, but it's a big red flag. The DHEA is supposed to protect that. But if you have prolonged high stress and your body's like, okay, I got X amount of energy and X amount of raw materials, and I got to keep pumping out cortisol, eventually it can't keep up with the DHEA. Now, some people may call that adrenal fatigue. I call it stage 2 adrenal dysfunction. So what that means, an imbalance between cortisol and DHEA, where your cortisol is relatively higher on the curve than your DHEA is on the curve. That's stage 2. And that means that your body is preferentially taking the energy that it has and making cortisol out of it. It does it with all your other hormones too. It does it with estrogen and testosterone and progesterone. And there's a term for that called cortisol steal. So your body's stealing from the other hormones because it has to make cortisol because you would die without cortisol. That's stage 2. Well, if you keep plugging along and you're pushing through it and you got shit to do, so you don't have time to take care of yourself, and you see self-care as a luxury and not a necessity, guess what happens eventually? You get to stage 3. And you know what happens in stage 3? Everything goes flat. Stage 3 is when you have low cortisol and low DHEA. And that's when you feel totally depleted. You don't have energy to get out of bed in the morning. Any sort of exercise, any sort of strain on your body just wears you out. You don't have to get up and go. You can't maintain. It's a struggle. You're pushing, like walking through thick mud to get through your day. Maybe because you're so determined, you can get through the things that have to be done, but you have no energy for anything else. If you find yourself scheduling all your important meetings of the day before noon, that's a red flag for stage 2 plus almost stage 3 adrenal dysfunction, because you hit this wall and your memory goes and you can't keep things straight later on in the day. One of my signs that I had stage 3 adrenal dysfunction back when I was still practicing as an OBGYN, I had vertigo. And the vertigo happened after significant stressful events. It happened twice to me over a period of a couple years. And finally, I realized, bing, 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 this is stress. The term adrenal fatigue really implies that your adrenals are just tired and they can't do it anymore. That's pretty rare. Prolonged high stress makes it shunt. It doesn't wear them out to that degree. There are two things that I see that can be determining and be mislabeled adrenal fatigue. So one of them is the prolonged high stress, where you have the flat cortisol and the flat DHEA. The other is immune system dysfunction. If your body is trying to fight some kind of stealth infection, whether it's a virus or maybe long COVID or something like that, your immune system can pull the trigger and short circuit the adrenals, because when you have that high stress and the cortisol goes up, cortisol suppresses your immune system. And so if your body's fighting an invasion, it will say, I'm sorry, I know you think you need cortisol here, and you do, but we're in the middle of a battle here and we're fighting invaders, so we're going to trump it and flatline it. Just like the brain does. When I talk about the prolonged high stress, it's the brain that short circuits the cortisol response. You have stage 2 dysfunction where your cortisol is high and your DHEA is low, and your brain is feeling that tension, that retraction. Prolonged high cortisol eats you up like acid from the inside out. Your brain starts to feel that and it short circuits and it says, tank, we're going to lower the cortisol. It's not because your body can't make cortisol. It's because either the brain or the immune system has short circuited it because of a 5-alarm fire. This is one of the issues with well-meaning doctors. When someone comes in and says, wow, you feel really bad and your cortisol is low, I'm going to give you Cortef, which is a prescription cortisol-like hormone. And so they give it to them in the mornings and the people start to feel better a little bit. But you know what? The reason that was trumped was the 5-alarm fire, either from the brain or your immune system. If you start giving the hydrocortisol or the hydrocortisone or the Cortef to someone with well-meaning intentions to make them feel better, but you didn't fix the underlying cause, that's an issue. You could actually make it worse. We want you to feel better, but it's not as simple as, oh, your cortisol's low, let me give you cortisol. We have to address whether it's the brain turning it off from prolonged high stress or that's the immune system turning it off because your body's constantly under attack. And if we don't determine those two things, you're not going to get better. And it's not that your adrenals are tired, it's that they've been short-circuited by something else. I'm Dr. Yvonne Karney. I'm the hormone locksmith. If you're wondering if you have adrenal dysfunction, notice I'm not saying adrenal fatigue, take my hormone quiz and it will help identify if you have imbalances in any of your core hormones. Forward this to someone who needs to hear it and take my hormone quiz.